Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the webinar on Leverage Your Stores as Fulfillment Centers and Add to Your Bottom Line by Jesta I.S. in collaboration with ProShip. My name is Esther Bendayan, Marketing Coordinator at Jesta. I would like to quickly introduce our two presenters, Musa Al-Salem and Justin Kramer. So Musa is the Associate Director of Store Systems and Omnichannel at Jesta I.S. and has more than 10 years of experience in the retail software industry. Justin is the Global Product Manager and co-founder at ProShip and has designed shipping solutions executing more than 1.1 million labels a day. Please note that throughout this webinar, we will be inserting polls that you can answer directly from your computer. So if you have any questions, please type them in the appropriate box and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. I'm going to now allow Musa to introduce the topic further. We hope that you enjoy.
Hi, everybody. So today's topic is about fulfillment and how you can leverage your stores as fulfillment center, and what are the benefits and challenges that come with that. To go quickly through the agenda, we're going to talk about the different sources of inventory where you can fulfill from, why fulfill from the store, or why think about fulfilling from your stores. We're going to go through the components of store fulfillment. Let's say you think about embarking on this project. So what do you what to think about before doing so? And we're going to elaborate more about the fulfillment, different fulfillment strategies such as last mile delivery and crowdsourcing, and some interesting topics that are very relevant in today's retail world. So to start, I'm going to talk about, we're talking about fulfilling from the stores. So I'm going to talk about first the difference between the warehouse and the stores. Typically, retailers have been fulfilling their orders from warehouses. So that is a fair comparison to make, but there are some main differences between both that impact how we deal of each when it comes to fulfillment. So while the role of the warehouse is to store products, the main role of the store is different, is to serve customers and make sales, right? So because stores receive inventory, receive customers, and they make sales and returns and probably transfers. And more now, retailers are looking into the stores as distribution centers. So to add to the already complex environment at the stores of customers and returns and inventory counts, we're adding more to this environment by looking at the store as a distribution center. However, unlike warehouses, that are a bit more static or inactive, the store, as we said, has a continuous movement and is much more complex operation that needs to be taken into consideration, right? Of course, these are not the only two sources of inventory. There are other. Next slide.
Yep. So Musa, just to introduce myself, Justin, as was announced before. So when we talk about sources of inventory, today we are going to be talking mostly about warehouses and stores, fixating primarily on the store area. We do want to acknowledge that there are other areas of inventory that a retailer might take advantage of. Obviously, there's the stores and the warehouses. There's also third-party logistics where you can get additional inventory from and spread out your footprint. And of course, there's the manufacturers themselves. With 3PLs and manufacturers, they can often do drop shipping for you. So it's not really the scope of what we're going to talk about today. It's definitely something that retailers may want to take into account as they go forward.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Actually, this brings an interesting point. Next slide, we have a poll that we want to ask you. We want to ask the attendees to answer. Where do you fulfill orders from usually? So as Justin mentioned, there are these four sources of inventory. One is the warehouse, two is the stores, the third-party logistics, and directly from the vendor or dropship. You can, I think you can select more than one. So please select how many of those are you using and which ones. I'm gonna take, I see some answers coming. So I'll give it a few seconds. Okay, great. So we have the results. So 79% of you answered warehouse, which is typical. 36 stores, 36 three-party logistics, and 14% vendors. So that's good. So 7, you guys are still fulfilling most orders from the warehouse, and some of you are fulfilling from stores and other sources. That's a very good insight. So when we do any of the projects that in today's IT or retail IT world, the most important thing, if you're not doing so already, the most important thing to think about is the customer experience. So anything that we're doing, or any project we're embarking on, customer experience has to be at the heart of it, right? So and fulfillment is no different to that. Actually, fulfillment is one of the most important touch points that your customers have with your brand or with your stores. So having that in mind, keeping that in mind will let you be successful at your project. So we keep talking about customer experience and customers' expectations. So what do customers expect? Of course, to give a customer a positive experience, we should at least start with fulfilling their expectations. And we talked about how the expectations has risen. So let's say what do customers expect? The first thing is order accuracy. And when I say order accuracy, that's both for the orders have to be accurate, whether in their content or in the delivery date that you give to your customer. An inaccurate order can have a negative impact on your customer experience, of course, with your brand, let alone the load that it will add to your operations to correct that order, from calling the customer service to coming into the store and occupying the lines and processing the returns. So an accurate order is one thing we expect, customers expect, and we as retailers expect to have a higher rate. Justin, do you have something to add for the shipping accuracy?
Yeah, so as we go through here, the next thing that really do want to look at is the multiple delivery options, and this is an area where it's ever expanding in the industry right now. We all are familiar with the standard express and ground solutions. Some people even use the United States Post Office directly within their stores and their warehouses. But there's also postal last mile solutions, as well as BOPUS, also known as buy online, pick up in store. And as you consider these options, it really can modify the way your customers interact with you. It can reduce the amount of time it takes for customers to get product. It can draw customers into stores, and it can also leverage the inventory that is in the stores significantly better. And as you evaluate these delivery options, you may want to execute based upon a random number of things, such as customer loyalty levels. Do you have somebody that's in a loyalty program, so you always are going to offer them an accelerated service? Did you sell them a level of service, let's say a standard versus a premium on your e-commerce site? Or are you pushing a product? Is there a hot item out there that if they purchase that item, their entire order is going to be quote unquote priority or expressed to them? Okay, all of these things that you really want to take into account when you're looking at your delivery options. Parcel visibility and traceability, one of the items that just got added up there. This is one of those areas where now sometimes you want to look at the systems that you have in place. not only your ERP solution that's going to present that information, maybe communicate that to the e-commerce suites, but also the shipping software. Ensure that you have the ability to communicate with all the carriers, and ensure that you have the data paths necessary to make that happen at the frequency which your customers are looking for. So with that, hopefully those are some good ideas as to how the shipping piece can affect your customer's expectation. Musa, let me go ahead and throw it back over to you to talk about returns and reverse logistics.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add a bit about the parcel visibility and traceability. Now, it's one of the customer's expectation. And when we say customer expectation, we think Amazon. That's setting up the standard and the bar very high. With Amazon, you can be or the customer, when buying on Amazon, they can see where their product at the different levels of pick, pack, and shipping, and outside of their warehouse. And that's where having a system that allows you to at least your customer service staff should know what happened to a certain order, or where is a specific order is geographically. And then you can maybe think about extending it and give this ability to your customers to check themselves. But it's very crucial that you have that, because not knowing where your order is causes a lot of frustration for the customers, and therefore a bad experience. And another point here that we didn't talk so much about is the fast and free delivery. So people are expecting fast and free delivery for their order. Give me 1 minute. Second. Oh, and also free returns, or more and more we are thinking about how we get items out to customers, but it's more and more crucial these days to think about reverse logistics. So like free returns, and how you get the items back to your stores and on your shelves to sell, or back to your warehouse. This is very important, because I think Justin, you mentioned to me a study where an increase where shipping labels increases the customer satisfaction even if they don't use them, and that's ultimately what we want, is to increase the customer satisfaction and their experience with our have a better experience with our brand.
Exactly. That study was a little older. It was from more than 5 years ago. It is true that even just putting a return service label in the box, even though the study showed that customers had a very low percentage of actually uptake on those labels, really did provide a significantly higher satisfaction level. And going forward, when we look at the fact that we might be able to use our stores as return centers as well, okay, again, this draws the people into your stores. While they're there, they may add an additional purchase to their list. But the convenience of not having to pay for shipping, not having to go to the post office or to a UPS or a FedEx drop box to have those returns happen, often is one of those things that really helps the customer have satisfaction with your product and your process. But more importantly, that option to swing by your place of business, drop it off directly there, even if you're just going to restock it on the shelves, or gather them all up and send them in a large parcel back to a refurb center or something of that nature, it has that added benefit of really pulling the customers back into the locations where they have an opportunity to see more of your advertisement, an opportunity to see more of your product, and an opportunity to add impulse buys at the time of return.
Thank you. I would like to share with you an interesting study I found on from Business Insider, and that is retail sales will reach 632 billion by 2020. Digital retail sales. So that is a lot of orders that need to be picked, packed, and shipped and fulfilled, and a lot of orders to get into the customer's hands. So we talked about what do customers expect. Now let's see what benefits or how can you meet the customer's expectation by fulfilling from your stores. So the first benefit is we're going to be talking about here is the speed of delivery. Again, with customers today expecting a 2-day turnaround, and this is the standard out there. Tapping into your stores for fulfillment lets you significantly reduce the delivery times. For example, let's say you have stores in hubs like New York and Chicago or Los Angeles. Using these stores as fulfillment center or like distribution centers allows you to reach a large amount of the population in most of the country, right? Yeah. It is easy to get the package delivered the same day to people who live in these cities because your inventory is already there in your store in that city, you know. On the other hand, however, if you're only fulfilling inventory from one city or from the warehouse, and the warehouse is, let's say, in New York, then imagine how long it will take the package to arrive to your customer who lives in California, for instance. And ultimately, the quicker the customer gets their order, the better the experience is with your brand, and that's why it's here the first one, speed of delivery. The second one is the decreased shipping cost, and that's for you and your customers, right? While it's true that you may need to make maybe a little bit greater initial investment to purchase more inventory and distribute it to their stores, to your stores locations, than you would with just buying the inventory for one fulfillment center. But there are cost savings that are realized elsewhere. So how? By decreasing the geographical distance between your products and your customers, you get a shorter distance to ship, and typically it's less expensive to ship an order 100 mile than 1,000 mile, I would think. When you ship from the warehouse, it can take a long time, of course, and that's because it might be that your warehouse might be in one state further to your customers. This is very important because high shipping costs are one of the top reasons for shopping cart abandonment. This will create an opportunity cost for acquiring new customers, and we know how it's very hard to acquire new customers, especially online with all the competition. So this is a place where you can optimize and make sure that you have decreased the shipping cost by reducing the geographical distance between your products and your customers, and get the products there faster. Justin, maybe you have more to add about shipping. You have way more experience.
So much more. But you know what? I want to backpedal a little bit. I want to go back to speed of delivery, because I think that was there's some really good information out there. For example, a 2017 Forrester case study on how Kohl's operationalized its digital strategy. It's a May 31st article out there. You guys can find it. But one of the things that we really wanted to draw from this is in 2016, when Kohl's moved their strategy from a warehouse-only strategy, where they had strategically located warehouses across the country in order to ensure that they were within 1,000 miles of just about everybody in North America, they were able to improve their speed of fulfillment and the fulfillment expenses as a percentage of digital sales, while increasing the speed of delivery to the customer by a half a day overall. So every single one of their customers across the country, on average, received their parcels a half a day earlier because of the fact that they leveraged all their stores. Now, at the same time, because, as we were talking about earlier, they were leveraging postal last mile solutions, they were leveraging more ground solutions, and they really had the opportunity to reduce all the express shipping that they had to do. Their overall shipping costs decreased. Okay, so when you look at all these things and you take the big picture into account, and you leverage the fact that your stores will be closer to some of your customers than even strategically placed warehouses, you really get an opportunity to not only decrease your logistics spend, but increase your customer satisfaction time by meeting those higher speed, free or low cost shipping expectations that customers now have.
That's great. Next benefit we want to talk about is localized product assortment, and this is very important, especially in the age of personalization and customization and tailoring to us, or catering to the mass market of one or me. Localized product assortment is the new norm, and Macy's is a great example. They have been doing very well in the last few quarters, and they attributed some of this success actually to their ability to tap into their already localized store inventories for fulfillment. For example, and how will this help you? For example, customers in, let's say in Houston, Texas, they have different preferences or specific preferences, and their stores in Houston have different assortment of the products that reflects their preferences. It's naturally, right? So as opposed to having a large distribution center that has a nationwide product assortment in the inventory, when the customer is buying online, naturally you would have the products in their local Houston store. So using the store as fulfillment source, localized assortment is already there. So that's a great benefit for you. So you don't have to worry about having multiple assortment in one centralized place. I'm gonna move next to the. Okay, spreading the risk in case of emergencies. So splitting inventory across locations helps you, the retailer, to be prepared and have options in the event that your orders can't leave a particular warehouse or fulfillment center, right? So the most common examples of this are due to bad weather, but there are other examples of, like, let's say fire or technical difficulties that prevent shipping carriers from making it from that specific fulfillment center.
Musa, you bring up a great point there. One of the things that we've noticed out there is that there are things other than what you have in the warehouse that may interrupt shipping capability. There's things that may affect the carriers themselves. There's other technologies within your enterprise stack that may cause this. As a matter of fact, very recently we had a major internet retailer of ours where they've got a great data center, multiple power feeds and multiple level 3 lines, all of these things going on. However, one of the safety features they had was a halon switch. And if any of you've ever been in a data center, halon will protect all of your assets. It will put out any fires. But as soon as you hit that switch, it takes down all power, even if you've got backup generators, even if you've got solar power, even if you've got power coming in from 3 different counties, that data center goes down. And it took 6 hours for this customer of ours to recover their entire enterprise stack and actually start the shipping process within their warehouses again. If there's any decentralization, if there is any not only decentralization of software but decentralization of product, the odds of that reduce significantly. So there are ways to spread risk. There are ways to ensure that maybe you're not going to be able to hit 100% efficiency for a day if you've got one of these technical problems that happens, but you're at least going to be able to hit high 50%, something of that nature. Keeping your customers with the product coming to them, and then have if you automate some options, well, maybe you're going to pay a little more for logistics that next day and a half in order to recover from it, but you're going to maintain those loyal customers, and they never need to know all the work that goes on behind the scenes to maintain that. They're just going to know that they're going to come back to your store, your website, and your business when they make the next purchase because you've met their expectations.
Absolutely, a customer experience is not something where we want to compromise on, right? And you better be safe than sorry, as we say. That's a great point. Thank you, Justin. The next point in here is okay. So that's we touch point. Justin, you talked a little bit about that earlier when we talked about returns, but now you leveraging or driving traffic back to your store by using buy online, pickup in store. Which is a form of store fulfillment, and it's a great solution, or it's a great strategy, and it has a win-win because buy online, pick up in store combines the convenience of online searching and price comparison to the instant and safest feeling of being served immediately once you walk into that physical store. Also, buy online, pick up in stores bring you more foot traffic to your brick and mortar stores, right? So more traffic equals more sales, and because a visit to the store has, and it's been proven that a visit to the store has a greater chance of conversions and increased transaction size. Actually, there's a statistics out there that says buy online, pick up in stores transactions are responsible for up to 30% of total retail e-commerce sales. So how is that? These are sales that wouldn't have happened if you didn't walk into this store. You order a shoe, you walk into you go pick it up into the store, or you order a computer and you go pick up in the store, and then there you see maybe a handbag or a laptop case, and you add it to the transaction, right? So that wouldn't have happened if you just shopped online for a specific item and in and out. That increases the transaction size by at least 30%, which is great. So next, okay, so we talked about all the benefits of fulfilling from stores, which is great. Now, let's say you don't already ship from the stores. So what do you have to think of, or maybe you do, but what else you can think of when you want to embark on this project, right? So the first component of that I'm going to be talking about in here, that it's very essential, you have to have it, is real-time view of your inventory. If you don't have a cluster clear inventory visibility across all your channels, you can't have a successful fulfillment from the stores, because you wouldn't know where to assign this order from, and you wouldn't know where your inventory is and how to move it from point A to point B, which is the customer destination. Also, to that point, you have to have a single version of truth. Having different databases that takes time to sync with each other, it is counterproductive. More and more, and this is what omnichannel and unified commerce is all about, is just one version of truth for not just your products, but also the orders, your customers, and across all of your system. So a good integrated system is a must here, right? To have a real-time view of your inventory. Reduce safety stock. This is there because a good real-time view of your inventory will allow you to have reduced safety stock. So safety stock is, if you don't know it, it's a threshold where you add to your available quantities, just in case the numbers are not accurate. So you would say, if my system says I have 10 of these items, add 5 or deduct 5, and I only have 5 to sell. Unfortunately, this 5 can cost you. Like these are 5 items that people are willing to buy online, and you are reserved because you're not sure you have it. So having a real-time inventory will allow you to reduce that safety stock. So why I say reduce and not eliminate at all? I'll go back to the point where or the challenges with the store, being dynamic environment. Sometimes you might have the best system in the world, the most accurate, live, everything in one database, but actually a customer walks into your store and he picks up something from the shelf, but he didn't check out yet. He or she is still shopping around. So that item is not actually available to sell, but there's no way for you systematically to know that this is not available to sell. So safety stock there would be a thin safety stock there will be recommended. Another example is damaged items. Like let's say you're selling a shoe, but it's both lifties or mixed sized, and you wouldn't nobody notices until somebody picks it up and is about to sell it or about to fulfill it. So that's where using safety stock is still essential. Unfortunately, but having a real-time view will allow you to put much less safety stock than you would have if you have, let's say, if you work with just one inventory file that gets updated once a day and etc. Okay, so your order management also should, or your view of your inventory should be channel agnostic, right? It doesn't help if you have live inventory in your warehouse, but you don't have live inventory view from your stores. Again, your customers or your order management system is looking at your inventory and or needs to look at your inventory in one place to decide is this item available to sell and where should we fulfill it from. Okay. So the next components that we have to think about is the deciding on shipping strategy, right? For that point, I think Justin, you have. I'm gonna.
Yeah, if you could show all of them, I'd appreciate it. Yeah. Exactly. So when we look at shipping strategy, there is so many dynamic things happening out in the shipping world nowadays. I've talked a little bit about postal last mile delivery. You may not be familiar with this. This is where the carriers are going, UPS, FedEx, even DHL will pick up for you. So you only have one carrier pickup. They'll transit it in their ground service, but then they'll turn it over in the last mile, so to speak. They'll turn it over to the United States Post Office, who delivers to everybody. And that ensures that you get a good amount of speed because you're leveraging the carrier's ground service, but you also get a lower cost because the United States Post Office has to go to everybody in the U.S. anyway. So to go ahead and make that delivery, that has been something that, especially when you have shortened that delivery distance, being able to incorporate these postal last mile solutions becomes a lot easier to still do that within that magic 2-day window that everybody is expecting to compete with some of the major internet retailers out there. There are new things coming out, crowdsourcing, Deliv, Shipt, Uber Rush. Some of those haven't made it, but we see new ones coming up to replace them. Okay, we've seen that where companies like Walmart are having their own employees do deliveries in some cases, and we see more and more of these options coming out. How are you going to mix these together in order to create your strategy? And of course, we want to include things such as BOPUS, and maybe you want to look at parcel lockers so that people can be drawn into your store, have to walk through, but not always have to wait for a clerk to actually go and fetch their items for them. They've got a code. They feel like it's modern. It's digital. It's everything they're expecting. But again, they're walking through your store. They're seeing the latest advertisements. They're seeing all of your all the flyers and specials and all that, and they're increased chance of adding additional purchases while they do that. And let's not forget that BOPUS costs you nothing to UPS, FedEx, or the post office. Okay, so there's all of these things that you want to actually look at as you put your shipping strategy together, as you expand out to other inventory sources rather than just your warehouses. Musa, did you want to cover anything on that pickback strategy?
Well, actually, that's a very interesting example you gave about Walmart. So Walmart's, as you mentioned, the newest tactic in its fight against Amazon is enlisting their employees to deliver online orders on their way home from work. Of course, they are compensated to do so, but they're still, Walmart is saving money and getting the orders faster. And that's a very nice example, creative example of the last postal last mile. The idea is to cut the cost, and when packages are driven to the customers' homes, Often they're less expensive than if you had if you have to use the other postal last mile, at least in Walmart's opinion, right? So the next component to think about is establishing policies and processes, right? So that is I went too far. Okay, so establishing policies and processes. Store fulfillment or this project cannot be just improvised. It has to be very well strategized, very well defined, the process and the policies around that. Starting with the KPIs, what you have to identify, what's important to you and what you need to measure. For example, maybe a cost per order is something you need to measure, and that will measure the efficiency of your fulfillment operation. This tells you how much it costs you to fulfill, pick, pack, and ship a single order on average. This is one example of a KPI. Other examples of a KPI you want to look at is the fulfillment's accuracy rate. And that's that is important. How accurate is your fulfillment? And your inventory accuracy, which is more than just the fulfillment accuracy. Fulfillment is to make sure you didn't make mistakes when you fulfilled. Inventory accuracy, actually, you want to do maybe regular cycle counts to make sure that whatever your system says it has in inventory is actually in the floor, and you don't have some losses or missing inventory for some reason. And that is a KPI that you need maybe to look at. Rate of return is another KPI that maybe you can follow. How fast you ship is also an important KPI when you look into fulfillment and how you measure your success there. Another area where you have to establish processes and policies is your employees' commission structure. This has actually been a challenge. I remember 10, 12 years ago when I used to work at a different retailer at the time, and we had this initiative, multi-channel, we called it back then. And then everybody was excited. We get orders online. We ship them from our stores. Everybody's happy. We get more. We make more profit because our margin is higher when we ship from either the warehouse or the stores than if we ship from the walk-ins. Except that the problem was we saw that more and more employees were protecting their inventory. So they were rejecting fulfilling orders because when they want to make commission on selling them, they don't want to fulfill the orders and not be able to fulfill it. So one way retailers realize they have to tackle this issue is by having the sales associate or the whoever is fulfilling the orders make commission on whatever they fulfill, or at least share the commission on whatever they fulfill. This way will give you a greater adoption rate for your orders, a better experience for your customer, and your employees are happy and they're working with you, as opposed to seeing this new thing as a threat to them and their commission and sales target, right? Business rules is another one that you have to think about, and that comes. What I mean here is basically what routing rules, for example, and we'll touch on that in a later slide also. But like, for example, routing rules. Do you want to have combine the shipments? You want to ship from different places? Do you value more speed of delivery or cost of delivery? All these rules, you have to set them up, and they don't have to be statics or set in stones. You should have the ability to change them as you please, and should be easily configurable. So that's Amro. If Justin, you have anything to add into the processes and policies?
There is a lot of processes and policies, but I would say that that's really something that where whoever you're working with as a partner, an ERP, a fulfillment partner, a shipping partner, whoever it is, you should be able to work with them, and they should be able to bring a lot of these intelligent rules to you, get you thinking, and help you establish some of these with best practices that they see amongst their own customers. Other than that, no, I think you covered all of it.
Perfect. So the next component is automating, right? So I'm gonna put them all here. Okay, so wherever you can automate, you should do it, because that will eliminate, will save you time and will eliminate human errors, right? So the first area where you can automate is checking the inventory availability. Your store staff should not be calling other locations to see if the inventory is available or for the customers to order, right? You should have, at the click of a button, the system should give you exactly how much you have, where, or at least if this is just a simple, yes or no question. Yes, you can sell it. No, you can't sell it. And this should be on the spot, because customers will not wait until you call, or it's not, it's not expected that they're going to spend time before you tell them that, yes, I can take your money and here's your product or here's your order. So this is very important to automate, and this ties very well into having a visibility, like 360-degree visibility, crystal clear visibility of your inventory and its locations, right? The second thing is definable routing rules. Let's say you value, like you value more shipping from different locations than concatenating all these shipment in one shipment, or maybe you want fastest to the client, or maybe cheapest, or the best of all is have the best sweet spot between cost and speed of delivery, right? So you should have the ability to define these rules, or maybe you can set up the rules based on the sales velocity at a certain store. You don't want to assign the order to a store who has more more of this item but have a greater sales velocity, so they have a greater chance of selling or needing this item for an offline sale, than a store who has maybe less inventory of this item but they have a very few or less or smaller sales velocity, so the likelihood of them needing this item is less. So your routing rules has to be smart, and they have to be you have to be able to change them. Let's say it's a few days before Christmas and you want to get all orders in for time, so you should be able to go quickly and change your routing rules to favor speed of delivery, even if you were going to maybe lose at some of these deals, but then you will get items to customers on time for this very time sensitive time of the year, right? The other area where you should automate is or why you should automate is to minimize the need for manual intervention, and that is everywhere. Like anywhere where you can automate, that means less human errors, and that's better order accuracy, and that's better customer experience.
It's also,
go ahead.
It's also areas where when you automate things, you prevent small costly things from happening, especially in the shipping world. We see this a lot. We say where a customer is expecting a delivery tomorrow. It's early enough. We're going to get it in today's pickup. This is something that a ground service often can deliver for us. So if we're going from one side of New York to another, that's a ground shipment. But your employees in the store may not know that. They see that it is an express shipment. It needs to be delivered tomorrow. So not only do they select an express service, but they select a next day express service, which can be 4 or 5 times more expensive than the ground service that would give the customer the same delivery experience. So there are a lot of areas for honest mistakes to occur unless we automate those things out.
Absolutely. And the other point in here, order assignment. Let's say where do you assign your order? There should not be a manual intervention. It should not be a manual process. The system should be able or should be smart enough to assign the orders to the right places. And that goes back, how does the system know, or how does the system know where to assign the orders? You have to give it accurate information. on that time. So that's accurate information about your products and visibility, and accurate information about your shipping costs. And as you mentioned, it might be cheaper to ship faster than slower. With the store staff wouldn't know it, but the system would. With a good integration with an integration with the shipping software that will tell you on the spot, this is the best ways to get this item from A to B, and these are the costs, and then you'll factor all that into your order assignment or automated order assignment process, and that will be it, and everybody will be happy, and it's a win-win situation. Sorry, we have a so let's take the question first, right? So we have a question here. I don't know, Justin, if we touch on that, but the question is, how do we incorporate rate shopping into the fulfillment?
How do we do rate shopping within the fulfillment process? Well, there's a couple of things we can do. As the order is being pulled in, the ERP or the CRM software or the order management software, because of course there are lots of overlap in the enterprise software stack, can ask the shipping software questions like, what would the cost be to ship from this inventory location versus another inventory location? And of course, the more inventory locations you have, the more questions that you can ask the shipping software. By doing that, at that point in time, you may add that information to where you source the product. There's other things you may want to look at. Are you going to split the order if there's multiple lines on it? Do you want to ship it in a single box? Those are other things that the other portions of the enterprise software stack should be able to handle for you. But then once you actually execute the shipment, when the items have been picked, you may want to look at what that original delivery promise was. Now, sometimes and often we can go ahead and pick the same day as the order is placed. Other times, if we push that out to a store, that store may have had a large run of customers, and your sales associates and your store colleagues are unable to actually get to the picking process and do that because they're too busy restocking, they're too busy dealing with in-person customers. And so we may need to make a decision as to whether or not we accelerate that, or whether we're able to take advantage of a ground solution, or better yet, a lower cost postal last mile solution. So there's lots of areas in that process where we can go ahead and leverage integration between different parts of the enterprise software stack.
Okay, perfect. That's good. So next, we have another question, but before we're taking that question, we have a question for our audience, and it is: do you currently have a real-time view of your inventory? Is it you do or you do not, or maybe sort of but not really, or it's an ongoing project, or maybe not applicable? So let's post. The poll is open. Okay, so 50% says yes. That's great. 17% says no. 25% are ongoing project, and 8% are it's not applicable. So that's good. That's all of us are going to the right direction at least, and that's very good to know. Assuring. Okay, so the other component, the next component that we want to talk about when we think of fulfilling from stores is the physical space in store, and that is you need the physical space to store your inventory first of all, and you need this physical space for your packing station where your staff will pack the orders, and you need a section where you put the orders to be shipped, waiting for your carrier to come pick them up, and you need a place to store for a place for store pickup, or a store pickup counter, let's say, where your customers can walk in and say, I have an order to pick up and here's my information. So thinking about the physical space is very important, and maybe you will realize that maybe not all of your stores can can fulfill orders, and sometimes the reason is this. It's just because they don't have enough space, especially in big cities such as New York, Manhattan, downtown. You have very less real estate in there, so maybe you can assign the order fulfillment to your stores in New Jersey, for example, which is not too far. And this decision is going to be made because of the physical space is not available in these stores. So the last one, but maybe the most important one, is to train your employee to fulfill the orders. You can tap into your existing employees at the store, and maybe you need to hire for different skills, but it's something to absolutely take into consideration when you want to embark on this project. You have to convey the importance of this fulfillment to your staff, and we talked about the compensation and their maybe goals or sales goals or structure. Have to incorporate that into their targets, so they'll understand that this thing is important. This thing is actually helping me, is not against me, and is not competing with me, right? And you have to give them the right tools. We go back to inventory availability. You have to, with a click of a button, you have to know if this item is available or not to sell, and you have to give them the right tools to pick, pack, and ship, right? Like without introducing so many errors. So the more we automate, the better. And this is some of the things you have to think about when training your employees. I don't know if Justin, you have anything to add on this slide.
No, I think that I think we've covered a lot of that. That really is the part where again, a good software stack helps to empower all of these different things, helps to automate as many things as possible, which not only increases your accuracy rate and your compliance rate, but hopefully makes your store employees' lives easier so they can focus on customer interaction and finding the right products for those customers in store, drawing them back to your stores, making them loyal and repeat customers rather than fighting with the technology itself. I think that's really the only other thing that I would add to this.
Okay, that's great. So that is the last slide. And here, next we're gonna move to questions and answer. Let me see what questions do we have. Okay, so I have some questions. I have one more question to go through, but if you guys have more questions, please write it in the chat and I will go through them. The question here is, what's the difference between unified commerce and omnichannel, and how does fulfillment fit into both? Okay, I'll take that one. This is an interesting topic out there. If you go Google, there's a lot of people asking what is unified commerce and omnichannels, and how is it different, and is it just a change of name? Actually, omnichannel was, well, first there was a unichannel where people were sold from one channel, and then came multi-channel, just to make the story short, and then where retailer had multiple channels they sell from, but they have silos, right? And then omnichannel came in, where retailers realized that it doesn't make sense that I have silos in my channels. Let's combine them all into one. And up until omnichannel, everything was tailored, or like the biggest goal was to make it efficient for the retailer, right? To make things easier for the retailer, cheaper for the retailer, right? Unified and integrating integrating all the different types of software into one, right, from all your channels. Then came unified commerce, which is just another evolution of omnichannel, and for me it's a continuous for that. You have to have an omnichannel to have a unified commerce. Omnichannel means that you have everything is integrated. You have one view of all your system talk to each other. Unified commerce comes in to put the customer experience in the middle. So now, instead of doing everything to make things efficient for the retailer, now we're doing everything give a better experience for our customers. So it's more, unified commerce is more moving the customer in the middle and doing everything around that, or all the projects that we do, or all the integrations that we do with that in mind. Okay, sorry, I have another question. What is okay? Is this the one? Stores normally offer limited choice of SKUs comparing to what the warehouse inventory offers. Should retailers offer split deliveries to their customers, i.e. delivery from the warehouse and the store, to maximize the basket value? I don't know, do you want to take that, Justin? I can take it. Or
Yeah, I think it really depends upon what your value proposition to the customer is. If your proposition is if you're a higher end retailer and the presentation is extremely important, you may want to ensure that everything comes together. On the other hand, if a lot of your customers are worried about value and speed, splitting that order can provide exceptional speed. It can provide, again, let's say you assume you've offered a 2-day delivery time. It can allow a next day delivery for the items that are in that local store, and a 2-day delivery for the items from the warehouse. Again, thrilling and engaging your customer wherever possible. So again, it comes back to what is your value proposition to the customer, and that should help guide your answer as to what you want to do. And maybe you even give the customer the option. I've been on many a retailer's website where I have the option to choose faster shipping or all of my items delivered together. So if you have the technology capability, you can split the difference and do both.
Okay, great. We're running low on time. We have more questions that we can take, so we're gonna email the answers. But maybe we have time for one short one, or you tell me, Justin, if that's a short, a quick answer there. The question is, what's crowdsourcing?
Crowdsourcing. So this is just like Uber crowdsourced the taxi environment. Airbnb has crowdsourced letting out your room for a weekend. All of these things. There's companies out there like Deliv. Uber was doing it for a little while with a product called Uber Rush, where you could actually via an API, when you did a shipment, you could have that basically these on-demand couriers come and pick up your product and deliver it to your customer. Okay, it's not available across the entire country, but especially in your major cities, New York, Chicago, LA, Houston, all these bigger cities around North America, you have many crowdsourcing options if you want to do to even enable you to do same day delivery in some occasions. Now, obviously, you would want to put this on a premium level or something of that nature, but that crowdsourcing capability we're really starting to see it a lot more, and it is especially big, I see nowadays, in the grocery industry. But if it works well in the grocery industry, it will probably start moving more and more into the retail industry.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin, for that. And that brings us to the end of this webinar. Unfortunately, we didn't get into all of the questions, but we will make sure to answer these questions by. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And this session is recorded, and we're gonna post it for future reference. Justin.
Thank you, everybody, as well. I'd just like to extend my thanks, and I look forward to talking to you all in future webinars. Thank you.